possible active shooter, 509 West 54th Street, Minneapolis.
Hey, troopers responding. We've seen a lot more medical.
Multiple victims. That's where EMS was coming in.
Don't just say this is about thoughts and prayers right now. These kids were literally praying. It was the first week of school. They were in a church.
This is Today As It Happened. Good Wednesday evening to you. I'm Andrew Rafferty here with your chronological look at the biggest events and stories of the day. Let's jump right in.
We are following breaking news, a shooting at a Catholic school in Minneapolis. We are hearing from the Minneapolis Star-Tribune, 2 children have died. The gunman has died. We're hearing from a self-inflicted wound. We have not yet been able to confirm that. We know that there have been a number of casualties taken to the Hennepin County Healthcare area. They're a level 1 trauma center, basically a trauma center, specialized surgeons, advanced equipment, specialized training for traumatic injuries. We don't know yet the situation there, but we do know that the gunman is deceased. President Trump has been alerted, and he said he's monitoring the situation. We have learned that the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office is on the ground. They are asking people to stay away unless you have a child at that school. They did set up a reunification area where children were able to reunite with their parents. We know that this area is a historic area. That church has been in the community since 1923, and the Catholic school is for children kindergarten through 8, preschoolers through 8th grade. It's an area where it's very diverse. It's just south of downtown. They were part of a gentrification project recently. The first settlers came to Minnesota near what is now Lake Calhoun, so a very historic area. As you can see here, it looks like the officials on the ground are headed this way. That looks like the Mayor Jacob Fry of Minneapolis. They're headed to a press conference, so let's take a listen.
There are no words that can capture the horror and the evil of this unspeakable act. Children are dead. There are families that have a deceased child. You cannot put into words the gravity, the tragedy, or the absolute pain of this situation. We are a Minneapolis family. But to everybody out there, do not think of these as just somebody else's kids. Those families are suffering immense pain right now. Think of this as if it were your own. Every one of us needs to be wrapping our arms around these families, giving them every ounce that we can muster. These were Minneapolis families. These were American families. And the amount of pain that they are suffering right now is extraordinary. And don't just say this is about thoughts and prayers right now. These kids were literally praying. It was the first week of school. They were in a church. These are kids that should be learning with their friends. They should be playing on the playground. They should be able to go to school or church in peace without the fear or risk of violence, and their parents should have the same kind of assurance. These are the sort of basic assurances that every family should have, every step of the day, regardless of where they are in our country. I'm so deeply saddened, and I'm so sorry to the families that I know are suffering right now. My ask is to everyone, stand by them. Love them. These families have forever been changed, and we've all been changed with them. We need to do everything possible to support them through this time. We have a family resource center that has been set up. I'm grateful for all of the law enforcement agencies from a number of different jurisdictions, all the different departmental support that we've received. They're going to be working tirelessly. There's also a family resource center that is being set up as we speak to make sure that we're there for everybody. Again, to the families that are suffering, to those that have experienced loss, I'm so deeply sorry. We're going to be with you every step of the way. We love you. This kind of act of evil should never happen, and it happens far too often. The chief will provide additional details.
My name is Brian O'Hara, B-R-I-A-N, O''H-A-R-A. I am the Minneapolis police chief. Earlier today, just before 8:30 a.m., our city experienced an unthinkable tragedy. Minneapolis police officers responded to a report of a shooting at a mass that was happening at the Annunciation Roman Catholic Church on the block behind me. This worship service was marking the first week of school for children that are attending the Annunciation Catholic School. During the Mass, a gunman approached on the side of the building, and began firing a rifle through the church windows towards the children sitting in the pews at the Mass. Shooting through the windows, he struck children and worshipers that were inside the building. The shooter was armed with a rifle, a shotgun, and a pistol. This was a deliberate act of violence against innocent children and other people worshiping. The sheer cruelty and cowardice of firing into a church full of children is absolutely incomprehensible. Police officers from the Minneapolis Police Department immediately responded, entered the church, and attempted to provide first aid and rescue some of the children that were hiding throughout the building, while other first responders came and EMS responded to rush victims to nearby hospitals. 2 young children, ages 8 and 10, were killed where they sat in the pews. Their parents have been notified. 17 other people were injured, 14 of them being children. 2 of those children are in critical condition. The coward who fired these shots ultimately took his own life in the rear of the church. Our hearts are broken for the families who have lost their children, for these young lives that are now fighting to recover, and for our entire community that has been so deeply traumatized by this senseless attack. We will stand together to protect our children, our schools, and our houses of worship. This deliberate act of violence is just a sign of cruelty that is beyond comprehension. Our hearts are broken for everyone that's been affected by this tragedy. As we begin the difficult path of healing, I want the community to know this, that even in the face of such evil, the Minneapolis Police Department and all of our law enforcement partners stand with our community. We stand with these families and with this parish. We will continue to be here for you. With that, the investigation is obviously in its preliminary stages, and I will attempt to take some questions to provide further information.
Chief, what can you tell us about the suspect in this case? How old was he? Any kind of motivation? Any notes or any other information you might have left with him?
So we were looking, the question was, what can be said about the shooter? We believe it is one suspect, a sole shooter. We believe he is deceased. He is in his early 20s, does not have an extensive known criminal history, and we are looking through information left behind to try and determine some type of motive. Yeah.
How many kids at the school?
How many children? I don't have an exact, the question was how many children at the school. There were dozens of children inside the Mass at the time. I don't have an exact count. The children have been relocated into the school, which is where their families are reunifying with them.
Other than the weapons, shooter, a student, former student, was he a former employee? Do we know that?
The question was, do we know if the shooter was a former school employee or a former student? We don't have that information.
Did he leave anything behind other than the weapons?
There's a vehicle. The question was anything left behind? There's a vehicle that we believe that the suspect used that is being searched, and we will be conducting other searches related to this. Inside the parking lot here.
There was some neighbors who said that the door to the church had been barricaded.
Yep.
Is that correct?
So the question was, neighbors had said that the door to the church had been barricaded. The shooter approached on one side of the church building, and on that side, at least two doors, it appears there had been like a 2x4 placed. So not all of the doors around the building, but on the side where the shooter did fire.
And on the outside?
On the outside, yes.
Shootings related. Were there any explosives that were found?
The question was there any explosives?
Related. Were there any explosives that were found?
The question was there any explosives? There were reports of that. There were no explosives or improvised devices that we found. I do believe there was one, I guess you would call it a smoke bomb, like not an explosive, but a sort of a firework that would release smoke.
And which side of the building? North, south, east, west?
The side that is closest to us, here, on this side. Yeah.
Chief, was this incident related? Also at these nearby homes?
I don't have specific information on that.
Was he dead from a gunshot wound, this suspect?
Yeah, the question was, is he dead from a gunshot wound? The answer is yes. We believe he took his own life in the parking lot.
Was this outside or both inside that he was shooting?
The question was he shooting outside and inside? He was absolutely shooting outside of the building, on the side of the church, inside through the windows. It appears he may have gone inside, but I don't believe we've located any casings inside the building. So I'm not certain if he fired also while inside. It appears, if not all, most of the shooting happened outside the building.
Chief, is this shooting related to any other shootings that happened in the last 24 hours?
Yeah, Taylor's asking, is this related to any of the other shootings? This does not appear to be related to any other shooting in the city.
Do you know approximately how many rounds were fired?
The question was how many rounds? I would say it's in the dozens. We don't have an exact count. There's a sidewalk on the outside as well as a grassy area, so obviously we are going through and taking our time to process the scene.
Was he firing just one weapon, like the rifle, or?
The question was he firing one weapon? We believe he had fired all three. He had a rifle, a shotgun, and a pistol.
Chief, was this individual licensed to conceal and carry? Did he have any background prior?
Were the weapons, was he lawfully carrying the weapons? I don't have that information, and I don't have any information on any significant criminal history either.
Was he dressed at all in any tactical type of gear or anything?
It appeared he had some black clothing on, his cargo type pants. I guess you could interpret that as, however you like.
All right, that was Minnesota police there, Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara giving us an update there. What we now know is that 2 children were killed, an 8-year-old and 10-year-old, where they sat in the pews. They were at morning mass. This was their first week of school. It's a kindergarten through 8th grade school. 17 others were injured. 2 are in critical condition. They were taken to local area hospitals. And we do know that the shooter is deceased, most likely from a self-inflicted gunshot wound.
Coming up on Today As It Happened.
The fact that they went to this level of preparedness by having all 3 weapons implies that they were ready to engage in major combat.
Welcome back to Today As It Happened. Let's check back in on our daily briefing of today's top stories.
We're following breaking news, a multiple shooting in a Minneapolis Catholic school, Annunciation Catholic School, this morning, killing 2 children, an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old, injuring 17 others. 2 are now in critical condition. The gunman, a man in his early 20s, he is now dead of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Let's bring in Scott Sweeto. He's a former ATF special agent in charge, currently the president of S3 Global Consulting, and joins us now to talk about the situation and now what the police have to sort through. Thank you so much for being here to help us out with this situation.
You're welcome.
So, Scott, listening to what the police chief said, what did you hear from that with the shooter? It sounds like he had many firearms. He had a rifle, a shotgun, a pistol. He was outside the church shooting in. We know two dead, 17 injured, 2 in critical condition. What's your response to when you hear something like this from that press conference?
I was actually the ATF special agent in charge in the Minneapolis division and what ATF calls the St. Paul division. So I'm very familiar with the area. His level of preparedness, the shooters, was fairly extraordinary. And the reason I say that is the way that they were armed. So typically what you'll see is the person has one weapon. They'll have a handgun or a rifle. The fact that they went to this level of preparedness by having all 3 weapons implies that they were ready to engage in major combat. They had long-range weapons, intermediate range weapons, and short-range weapons. So they were prepared to not only shoot the building up from the outside, but once they got inside, if that happened, a shotgun has particularly devastating impact, and then the pistol, of course, is for close range. So I think that's fairly unusual, and I haven't seen that sort of preparedness in most of these shootings that have happened, unfortunately.
A lot of people now will point to the fact, whether or not, wherever you are politically, about gun violence. We know this was the 3rd deadly shooting in 24 hours in Minneapolis. 7 people were shot outside a Catholic high school yesterday. 6 people were shot. 7 people shot. 1 person died. Opened fire in broad daylight on a sidewalk. Can you tell us a little bit more about Minneapolis gun laws and what efforts are being done? I mean, obviously, this is not, unfortunately, uncommon for a large city, but having been there with the ATF, what are they facing there in Minneapolis and in Minnesota as a whole?
This may not be a super popular thing to say, but unfortunately, Minneapolis has been inflicted with some decisions to really minimize the number of police that are available there. That's an inescapable conclusion. It's a fact. More police do not always necessarily make things safer for everybody, but they certainly provide a lot of impact against crime. And when you see the sort of gun violence that's been happening in Minneapolis recently, and there were very similar sorts of things happening when I was ATF special agent in charge, having robust policing that the community trusts to deal with all these shooters out there. The shooters have to believe and feel that there are going to be consequences if they get caught, meaning that if you get caught violating Minnesota's gun laws, and Minnesota has some very strict gun laws, you are going to go to jail, and you're going to go to jail for a long time.
Up next on Today As It Happened.
They cannot send him to El Salvador, and they can't do it by means of Uganda, Uzbekistan, or Ukraine.
You're watching Today As It Happened, Scripps News rundown of the biggest events and stories of the day. Let's jump right back in. A federal judge has extended an order that blocks the Trump administration from deporting Kilmar Abrego Garcia at least until sometime in October. Scripps News legal correspondent Abijoy Burnett is here with me in studio. Abijoy, obviously, this is a case that has really electrified proponents of immigration, and especially in light of what we are seeing here in D.C. and across the nation with these ICE actions. What is the actual status of Kilmar Abrego Garcia?
Well, today there is a court hearing in Maryland, and this federal judge set a court date for October 6th. This is a totally separate case that just opened up this week. speak regarding Kelmar Brego Garcia. And in this particular matter, he is fighting deportation potentially to Uganda. His attorneys have argued in court documents that he has no ties to Uganda, and they're really concerned that he could ultimately be redeported to El Salvador, with Uganda just being a layover. I was able to speak with his attorney after that court hearing. He granted me an interview, and here is more of his explanation as to why they're really concerned about this potential deportation to Uganda.
He's seeking protection from deportation to Uganda on the basis that Uganda has not provided him with any sort of assurances whatsoever that it's not going to redeport him onto El Salvador, right? To send somebody to a third country as a way station to their first country, where deportation to the first country is prohibited, is itself prohibited, sort of for obvious reasons, right? I mean, the law doesn't matter whether it's a direct flight or it's got a layover. They cannot send him to El Salvador, and they can't do it by means of Uganda, Uzbekistan or Ukraine.
Abrego Garcia was released from custody last week, Friday, and then he was taken back into ICE custody on Monday. So right now he's at a facility in Virginia. And earlier today, this Maryland judge who's overseeing this new case, she extended a temporary restraining order, which says that the United States, the government, the Department of Homeland Security, they must keep him here in the United States, in the continental U.S., at least until this deportation case is over. And he must remain within 200 miles of her courthouse.
We'll be right back to continue our look at today's top stories. Welcome back to Today As It Happened, Scripps News debrief of our top stories of the day. Let's jump right back in. Flags at the White House are flying at half staff. The president ordered it earlier today to honor the victims of the shooting. Scripps News White House correspondent Haley Bull is live for us from the White House. Haley, what can you tell us?
Yeah, Andrew, we understand President Trump and Governor Walz spoke by phone earlier today as the administration is monitoring the developments on the ground in Minneapolis. As you mentioned, the president signing a proclamation to honor the victims of this shooting, directing flags to be lowered to half staff through the end of the month through Sunday. The flags outside the White House have already been lowered. Throughout the day, we have seen top administration officials weigh in and offer their prayers. President Trump writing on Truth Social, quote, "The White House will continue to monitor this terrible situation. Please join me in praying for everyone involved." We understand agencies are aiding in the response. The FBI is on the scene. FBI Director Kash Patel updating a short time ago that the agency is investigating this as what he called an act of domestic terrorism and hate crime targeting Catholics. Additionally, the ATF is aiding. It told Scripps News that it has conducted an urgent trace on a firearms recovered at the scene. It then gave that information to investigative agencies. We are told officials here are following this. They are staying updated. They are popping in and out of the Situation Room. We are also told that President Trump is being briefed on media reports on the shooting. So certainly a lot of eyes on this developing situation, Andrew.
All right, White House correspondent Haley Bull, thank you. Several weeks into President Donald Trump's takeover of the nation's capital, law enforcement, like the National Guard, are seeing missions ranging from patrolling the streets to picking up trash. National Security correspondent Liz Landers is in D.C. and has more on what is becoming an increasingly controversial deployment. Liz, can you tell us what's happening?
Yeah, Andrew, we've been here at Union Station out in downtown D.C. We are a few blocks away from the Capitol here, and all throughout the afternoon for hours we were seeing the National Guard patrolling this area here. And the National Guardsmen and women that we saw here were armed. So that has been a change within the last few days or so. The Pentagon did confirm that over the weekend, and we are now seeing that here on the streets of Washington. National Guardsmen and women with the military police MP insignia on their uniforms. We could see that some of them were from the state of Louisiana. Each state National Guard has their own little crest and insignia here. So also confirming that many of these National Guards members are from other states. We know that there are 6 states, several of them with Republican governors, that have sent their National Guard here to D.C. And this is all part of President Trump's efforts to, what he says, beautify the nation's capital and make it safer here. Now, we heard just earlier today from Mayor Muriel Bowser here in Washington, who had a press conference about this federal takeover of law enforcement here, as the president has done within the last few weeks. And she said that she's grateful for the drop in crime. She mentioned that there has been an 87% drop in carjackings here in the district in a 20-day period as compared to the same period last year. But she did say that the National Guards members in particular are not helpful. She said it's not a good use of resources to have them patrolling around areas like we're standing in right now that typically do have law enforcement and security presences here anyways. She also said that some of the presence of masked members of ICE is breaking the trust between the police and law enforcement and the community. So sort of offering some of her gratitude towards the administration, but also highlighting some areas of criticism from her too. And just one more thing too that I'll add, Andrew, that just happened earlier this morning. The Secretary of Transportation, Sean Duffy, came here to Union Station and said that the Trump administration is going to be taking over the administration here of Union Station. It's typically been overseen, and this station is run by Amtrak, the train service company. That is no longer going to be the case. So another indication of how the federal government is taking over parts of the nation's capital. Andrew.
All right, Liz Landers, thank you. We want to go back out to Minnesota. We understand that Tim Walz, the governor of that state, is briefing the media. Let's go to that live.
Certainly a day and a news conference that no one wants to be at. A community behind us, Annunciation Church and School, committed to academics, service, and Catholic values, filled with the first days of school of beautiful children going to learn those values, share with their teachers and their classmates. Instead of that joy and that curiosity and that learning, they were met with evil and horror and death. And we often come to these and say, these unspeakable tragedies, are there be words for these types of incidents, because they should not happen. And there's no words that are going to ease the pain of the families today. On behalf of all the people of Minnesota, our deepest sympathies. A wish that any of these words would make what you're feeling now better, but it won't. A place that's founded on community, founded on service, founded on family. I'd like to give special thank you to the mayor and the team in Minneapolis, the Minneapolis Police Department, Hennepin County Sheriff's Office, Minnesota State Patrol, the BCA, so many agencies, our federal partners in the FBI, the first responders, and the heroic work that's happening now as we speak at multiple medical locations, including Hennepin County Medical Center, where most of our children were transported to receive the life-saving care. The thoughts and prayers and the hopes and the support that we need to give them in this moment too is critical. Speaking with all the people here and grateful to our federal partners, Senator Klobuchar speaking early this morning, and receiving a call from President Trump, who was with his leadership team of the Attorney General and the Vice President, expressing their deep condolences amongst the horror that happened and an offer to provide the support to the folks here in Minnesota of what's needed. So a lot of cameras here, and unfortunately we've been through these types of things. They will be gone at some point. All of you have to do your jobs. But what happened here today will not be gone. Minnesotans will not step away. We'll stand with this community. We'll redouble ourselves to do the best we can to understand what we can do to prevent any parent from having received the calls they received today, from any school dedicated to children having to respond to a situation that, as we said, is unthinkable, but that's all too common, not just in Minnesota, but across this country. It's Minnesota's day to day, and it's my strongest desire that no state, no community, no school ever experiences a day like this. So I ask the rest of the folks around the country who are watching, keep us in your thoughts and prayers, but also keep us in the thoughts for action. Keep us in the ideas that we can work together. And it's on these days like this, I think, and I hope we can hold on to it. We are unified as a community. Everybody across the country today is part of the Annunciation Parish, and they're with those families.
How are the injured students doing? What are their conditions at this point?
The question from Matt was, how are the injured students doing? I believe all of them have their parents with them now, and they are all expected to survive. All of the remaining victims are expected to survive. There is a range of injuries, however.
Chief, you said the weapons were acquired legally. Do we know when
Yes.
and where they were acquired?
I can tell you they were purchased recently.
Chief, can you tell us anything more about a possible motive here? We've also heard reports that the suspected shooter's mother was employed here at some point. Can you confirm that as well?
So the question was on a possible motive and a relationship to the church or to the school. I have no information to share on a motive other than saying again that there was some sort of manifesto that was timed to come out on YouTube. It's been taken down and our investigators are going through that to try and develop a motive from that. Additionally, there are these 3 search warrants happening in residential locations, and we may very well, find more information or writings that could give some sense to that, but we don't have that now. And I cannot confirm a relationship between the suspect or his family and this church at this time, but that's obviously something we're looking very closely at.
Chief, about the manifesto, can you confirm at this point whether it was in fact by the suspect, or do you believe at this point that it is in fact from him? And second question, sorry.
What was by the suspect?
The manifesto that you've been talking about.
Yep. So the question was about the manifesto. We do believe it was by the suspect, yes.
And we understand that we've seen some documents about the name change that somebody with the same name as the suspect has filed for a few years ago. Yep. Do you believe this to be the same person, that Robin Westman was in fact born with a different name at this point? And can you speak a little bit more about the identity?
Yep. So the question was about the suspect, and he had a name change at some point in the past. I cannot confirm that other than confirming the identity, the name that I gave you, the age. That is the suspect. That's the person that we believe has caused this.
You have been listening to officials in Minneapolis giving an update on that deadly shooting at a school church earlier today. Let's start with the good news. Officials saying that all of the children, as well as the 3 adults who remain injured after that shooting, are expected to survive. We learned a lot in that presser, including the shooter, who has been identified as Robin Westman. We understand that a manifesto was released in coordination with this attack that placed him on the scene, and we learned that all of the guns, a rifle, shotgun, and pistol, were legally purchased and that they were purchased recently. Coming up on Today As It Happened.
It makes me angry. It makes me upset that in some cases, at the federal level, for example, we're going in exactly the wrong direction to protect our kids from what is the #1 killer of kids.
We continue to follow breaking news. Wednesday morning, an individual opened fire during a mass at a Minneapolis Catholic school. 2 children are dead, 17 others are injured, and the shooter is believed to have taken their own life. It is just the latest example of gun violence in the U.S. Already in 2025, we've had more than 285 mass shootings here, according to the Gun Violence Archive. And joining us now is the head of Brady, a group that works to end gun violence. Chris Brown, thank you for being here. I imagine that often the days that are busiest in your world are the days responding to events like we are seeing out of Minnesota. So I'm interested to get your initial reaction.
The same one that I have anytime this preventable kind of tragedy happens, which is just horror. As someone who leads a gun violence prevention organization and know there's always something more we could have done to prevent the kind of agony that parents today who sent their kids to their first day of school are experiencing, and also an understanding as a mother that there's so much more that we can collectively be doing. So it makes me angry. It makes me upset that in some cases at the federal level, for example, we're going in exactly the wrong direction to protect our kids from what is the #1 killer of kids, which is guns in America.
And I know we have well documented the struggles on the federal level to get comprehensive gun reform, but your group and many other gun safety advocates have been working on the state level. Minnesota is one state that I know in 2023 passed a somewhat comprehensive gun safety bill. We just learned a few moments ago that the rifle, shotgun, pistol were, quote, lawfully purchased by this shooter. I guess, what is your reaction to learning that?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of questions. Who sold the gun? What were the circumstances of that sale? We always have to answer and ask those questions. So I'm glad that you're following through on that. But look, we have a public health epidemic associated with gun violence. Like I said, it's the #1 killer of our kids. So we have to ask ourselves, how do we make sure that individuals intent on doing harm to themselves or others, how do we stop them easily accessing firearms? And if they have firearms in their possession, how do we potentially remove those? And to your point, Minnesota passed a law, and it was signed into law by Governor Walz in 2024. It's called an extreme risk protection law, and it allows the removal of firearms from individuals who are deemed at risk to themselves or others. Some 22, 23 states have these laws, and they have materially saved lives, including preventing what the police will reveal were potential mass shootings. So we also have to make sure that the states have the right kind of funding to educate the public, folks who are in the know about potential risks, about how to access these kinds of orders and what to do. Unfortunately, President Trump is attacking exactly that kind of funding to states to enact and to educate the public about things like extreme risk protection laws. So I'm very concerned about that. We'll continue to work at the state level, but it's hard when the headwinds we face come from our own federal government.
All right, Chris Brown, the president of Brady Gun Violence Prevention Group. Chris, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Coming up on Today As It Happened.
Well, we have more guns than we have people. In the United States of America, we have over 400 million guns.
Welcome back to Today As It Happened. Let's check back in on our daily briefing of today's top stories.
I can't stop thinking about all of the families and little kiddos that went off to school this morning. It's the first day of school, first week of school for many Minnesota kids, and just what everybody is going through. Of course, first and foremost, the families of Annunciation Catholic School. It's just such a terrible tragedy today.
Mass shooting at a Catholic school when a shooter opened fire, gunning down children and adults. Minnesota's governor is saying his mission is to end violence like this. Scripps News national correspondent Alex Miller is live for us in New York with the latest. We learned a lot in those briefings, not just from Walz, but also from police officials. Alex, what have you been learning over the past few moments?
Well, they did give an update on this investigation. There were a couple of questions that they somewhat answered of things that we have been speaking about. They did not want to draw that direct connection between the shooter, who has been identified as Robin Westman, and him or a family member to this school. We had previously been reporting that We found his mother on their social media page, apparently a former employee there. They have not gone as far, but they say they are looking into this, as well as the fact that they confirmed that there is a name change that happened. This person was originally born as Robert Paul Westman. Now, this investigation still very much ongoing, a motive still very much in question here, but we do know that he bought these rifles, the shotgun, the pistol, all items were bought legally and they were bought recently. So that is an important part of this as well, of course, and that there are currently 4 search warrants being executed, one of them at the church where this crime happened, 3 of them at other residences around the Minneapolis area that they believe to be in connection with this shooter. They say that they're also working to recover some weapons from those residences, so that is something that we also need to be paying attention to. Listen to what else the police chief had to say.
At this stage, we believe that the shooter had acted alone. There is no indication of other suspects directly involved in carrying out this attack.
We also have learned that there was a manifesto of sorts that was scheduled to be posted on YouTube that has since been taken down, but we have combed through this manifesto and we found almost at the very end of the clip there is a drawing. All of this, by the way, it's a journal essentially that is handwritten, and from what we can see in this drawing, it looks to be somewhat of a layout of this church. That is it on the screen for you right now. It looks to be a floor plan of this church. Remember, the police chief says that the shooter did not enter inside, but shot from outside. I still have many questions about whether or not the doors were locked, whether the shooter tried to get inside, but just that from the manifesto. This is all part of a YouTube video that has since been taken down. We've also seen clips of from these YouTube videos, apparently a part of this man's account showing racist, anti-Semitic imagery and calling out religion as a whole.
In addition to the 2 children that were killed, a number of others that have been injured. Any update on that front?
Yes, thankfully, anybody who was shot today, other than those 2 children who tragically died on the scene, is expected to survive. There are 18 now victims in total, and 3 of them are adults in their 80s. Remember, this is a church that was attached to the school, but it appears as though people could go to Mass as they please. So the adults who were shot were in their 80s, according to this news conference that we just listened to. The children all reunited with their parents, and everybody is expected to survive, though we know earlier today there were 4 surgeries on 4 of the children who were victims there. But again, all are expected to survive.
All right, Scripps News national correspondent Alex Miller for us in New York. Alex, thank you. Thank you for joining us this evening for Today As It Happened. I'm Andrew Rafferty. Have a great Wednesday night.